Okay, so first thing I'd like to establish is that I hate Christmas. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about SINSMAS, which is the Christmas episode of Helluva Boss that was just released a few hours ago. There was a lot happening in this episode. This was kind of a jam-packed episode. First thing we have to establish is we got a nice good look at domestic Stolitz. We got our first good look at what that life is going to be like. I like it. I thought some of the funnier moments in this episode, it wasn't really a very funny episode, I don't think, but some of the funnier moments in it were like when Stolitz my favorite moment was when he was at the what was it? I think he was at work, and they talk about, oh, here's something you can do, you know, get a little bit of money coming in, and he's like, money coming in? Wait a minute, I'm poor. No! That was very funny. It's like, it just took you until now to figure out that you're poor? And there's also, you know, when he has his little Citizen Kane moment, and he tries to knock over the desk, but it won't move, and he's like, I threw my whole life away for these stupid fantasies. He's really funny when he's all dramatic like that. I found those moments humorous. I also like the moment where that sinner who comes into their office, they just throw her out the window when they're done with her. But yeah, overall, not a very humorous episode. It wasn't really heavy on the comedy this time. It was more of a it was really more of a wholesome episode, which I guess makes sense because it was the Christmas episode. And we have this interesting thing where I remember when the trailer was out, and that was the only thing we had of this second half of the season. And you had that line where Stolitz was talking to Blitz and saying, you know, do you ever feel remorse for what you do? And I remember wondering at the time whether this line was just about their relationship or if it was about something more, if maybe Stolitz was criticizing Blitz for his business practices. And I remember talking to people at the time, and there's this one person I was talking to on Reddit about it who was saying that he thought, like, there's no way they're ever going to introduce a storyline like that in the show, just because it's like we've had too much of the show already. We're halfway through. But I was like, I don't know, really. You can't use the rest of the show to do more with the story. It has to just be the same bullshit we've already set up. Why not? Why can't we introduce another element in here? And so I'm actually kind of surprised that it seems like this episode kind of did that. It kind of introduced that very same element that people were telling me, no, they'll never put this element in the story ever. Well, it seems like they kind of did in this episode. With the idea that sometimes they can be picky about who they terminate, which is, I don't know why anyone thought that wouldn't be introduced, because Moxie talks about that in the first episode. In the very first episode, that was Moxie's whole, like, character arc in that episode, if you even want to call it that, where he was nervous about killing the family. And he's like, are you sure we should ruin a I guess they weren't killing the whole family, but they were killing the mother. And he's like, do we really need to ruin a whole family? Can't we be a little bit selective about our targets? And Blitz was like, nah. And Millie was like, no, we don't need to be selective. That's not how our business works. We just kill who they pay us to kill. Well, in this episode, Blitz and Moxie, but really Blitz, surprisingly, just doesn't want to kill this person because he thinks that this is not worth it. It's overkill. It's not justified morally, which is fascinating. And it makes me wonder if this is going to keep going, or if it's just because it's the Christmas episode they decided to do this little kind of moral message deal. I wonder if this is something, a little idea that they're planting into the show. Sort of like the whole thing in Monsters, Inc. where they collect children's screams, and then at the end they find out that laughter is actually more effective than screams at carrying power. That same idea, that, you know, there might be a better route for this business to go down in the future. But who knows? I feel like I keep getting vindicated with my predictions. I keep saying, hey, this might happen, and then it happens. You know, like I thought in the last episode that Stolas might lose his estate and have to crash with Blitz. It happened. And so I was surprised that even this seemed to kind of happen. At least they brought it up, you know, it became an idea. Millie is pregnant, I guess. I'm curious about why she's so upset about that. I mean, I can imagine reasons why she would be upset about it. I mean, but I'm still curious about why she would be upset about it, because she seems the kind of person who doesn't get upset about things. Unless there's a really good reason for it. She's very positive, and so it wouldn't seem to me, I wouldn't think, oh yeah, Millie pregnant, that would be a disaster for her. It seems like to me, oh no, that would be something that she would take well. But she did not take it well. She took it really badly, really poorly. And I'm wondering why. I'm wondering what we're going to learn about that in Season 3. That's going to tell us why she's so upset. And she even tells Moxie when she comes back, she's like, you know I love you, right? Or something like that. And it's like, what's that about? It's curious. Curious. I don't know how the Stolas haters are going to take this episode, what direction they're going to take it in. Are they going to run wild with it? I'm getting fucking sick of those people. You know who I'm also getting sick of is Octavia. So Octavia was kind of the biggest portion of this episode of the conflict. That's we kind of knew she would be based on stuff we'd seen in the trailers that hadn't happened yet, and just where the last episode left us. This episode kind of played out exactly as I thought it would, regarding just Stolas takes it upon himself to visit Octavia, and then gets, you know, has like a hard conversation with her, and it's sad and blah blah blah. Oh, and then Drillfus fights him. So yeah, Octavia. I've never wanted to be too harsh on Octavia, because I know that she's just a kid, and I've always felt that, hey, she's a kid and she's reacting to stuff in a realistic way. It might not be a smart way, but it's realistic, it's understandable given her upbringing and how old she is. But I'm really just starting to get tired of her shit, and here's why. She's being, like, just in her face all, like, the whole fucking episode, in her face this whole time, is Stella and Andreelfis just being total cunts. From top to bottom, the most cuntish, horrible people. And still, it seems like she has way more anger for her dad than anyone else. Even though he's the one person in her life who's trying to be nice to her. And I get it that, okay, she had more of a relationship with her dad, and she always liked her dad more, and so for that reason she feels more betrayed when he can no longer see her, even though, you know, he said that he would always be there for her, and now he's not. I get that. I understand why that works. But when it's the one guy in your life who's actually kind to you and who actually cares about you and wants a relationship with you, when it's the one person in your life who is that way, why on earth would you rather pick these cunts over here than him? Like, sure, you can be upset about it. I'm not even saying that she doesn't have the right to be upset at him at all. I'm not even saying that. I think she could. But it's just this melodramatic, now I will no longer accept you in my life because you lied to me. It's like, does she not like, okay, she's 17, she's a kid, right? She's a kid, but like, even at 17, are you not old enough to understand that sometimes adults make promises that they intend to keep and shit just gets in the way? Like, can you not understand that basic concept at your age? Like, holy shit, girl, get your fucking brain in your skull. But no, because Stolitz decides that he would rather, you know, not let his little lizard boyfriend die. He would rather do that than you know, keep his estate and everything and keep his old life, because he makes that decision, which she never makes an effort to understand. She never even makes an effort to like understand it from his perspective at all. Then it's like, no, I'd rather take Cunty McCunterson and her cunt boyfriend slash brother than the one guy who's not a cunt in my whole life. Like, what in the world is she thinking? This character motivation doesn't make any sense. There is a germ of something that makes sense in there, but they took it, I think, too far here. I don't think, like, I used to think that this character, hey, this is a realistic character. You may not agree with everything that she thinks or does, but like, she's understandable. But at this point, I'm starting to think it's just not holding up. The motivation here just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't matter how angry you are at your dad. You're ultimately angry because you love him, and you do love him, unlike these other people. Like, there's no way that she loves Andreal Fist. Like, are you kidding me? But then she's mad at him for not loving her mother, and it's like, have you seen your mother? Have you seen your mother once in your life? It doesn't make any sense. She like cannot put together the most basic clues. And then she doesn't even want to listen to him in the end. So yeah, I guess I'm on team Octavia is an idiot, you know? That's where I am right now with this story. I get them wanting it to be dramatic. I get them wanting it to be melodramatic even. And it should be for Octavia, because that's her character, how they've set it up. And so far in the story, I feel like they've done her character well, even though I don't particularly like her all that much. I mean, the one thing I have always thought was weird was how she like never seemed to acknowledge the whole elephant in the room that is Stella. I've always thought that was kind of poorly written, but they had room to develop that into something. They couldn't, you know, they could have explained that, but they still haven't explained that. They still haven't given any context for really how Octavia feels about Stella, and it's needed at this point because she's such an elephant in the room, as I said, and they're not talking about it, and instead it's just like the whole blame goes on Stolitz all the time. And like, yay, as much as I love Stolitz, like, I'd be okay with Octavia being mad at him, as I said. It's just, it doesn't make sense that like her anger is like utterly stupid. The motivations for it don't make any sense. That being said, you know, you might expect me to come away thinking that this episode was lackluster or not as good. I actually don't agree with that. I actually still think that this episode is better than Full Moon, and it's still really a really good follow-up to the 3 that we had before. I think that this is a great episode, honestly. I really do. I think it might be because I never really had much confidence in Octavia as a character in the first place, and so her continuing to be an idiot to me is just like, okay, well, that's Octavia at this point. I just thought that maybe they could do something better with her, and they didn't. But I really like this episode altogether. It had 4 songs in it, which is pretty striking for Helluva Boss, that they invested so much into 4 songs. Not all of which really have much presence in the episode. Obviously, Octavia's big song does, and there were callbacks to You Will Be Okay in that song, which was interesting. It was also, I think, an interesting follow-up to All To You from Apology Tour. It was in that same style, and it was a similar kind of idea of that song, of how Stolitz felt abandoned by Blitz, and now Octavia is talking about how she's felt abandoned by Stolitz. And it's a great song. I actually think that it emotionally it works really well as a beat in the story, and I don't have a problem with the song at all. It also, there was that weird little kind of, I don't know what you call it, song that appears toward the beginning of the episode when they're going shopping. That was kind of the most forgettable scene in the episode, and it was the most forgettable song in the episode. Although the person singing it, was that the woman who plays Octavia? Because it kind of sounded like her. I don't know if it was. And then you had 2 Christmas songs, or SINSMAS songs, toward the end. One of them was kind of in the style of Mariah Carey. And then in that one, I don't know who sang that one. It sounded like it could have been another Erica Henriksen appearance. I didn't read the credits of this episode. And then also the Frank Sinatra pastiche at the end, which worked really well in that scene. And I mean, that's such a good scene, I guess, as a Stolitz shipper. Just a wonderful moment. And it has, I like that it still has a little bit of tension in it, you know. There's still a little bit of that resistance from Stolitz, because he does feel so guilty that this new chapter in his life is coming at the expense of his relationship with his daughter. And that's just still devastating to him. And yet you see in this moment that he's, you know, he can't do anything other than either mope or accept the good thing that he now has. And so it's this beautiful moment, I think, when, you know, because Blitz has been just totally supportive of him this whole episode. And you see finally he's willing to go, okay, I'm going to validate that. I'm going to validate this relationship for what it is, because I really do actually love and care about this relationship, even though he was earlier having a mental breakdown of the fact that he made such a huge mistake in his own dramatic way. In the end, he knows that he made the right choice. And so there's a lot, I think, going on there in that moment. And even that hug at the very end, it's just such a sweet moment. But that hug at the end, he's not hugging him back. Because he's, you know, you can tell he's still too sad. But he's, at the same time, you can tell that there's a real understanding there. They're both really connecting there. And they're having a real intimate moment there. And it's very nice. I think this episode was peak Stolitz that we've gotten so far in the show. And it just all feels very warranted, especially given the whole Christmas theme of this episode. Having it so that, you know, they they can't have their family the way they want to have it, but at least they can, you know, make the most of what they have and be family for each other in as much as they can. And that was interesting, seeing Blitz's little vision that he had when looking at the family that they were about to kill, and seeing he saw himself and Stolas and Luna and Octavia all together, which is something I've seen in fan art so many times. People have made fan art of these characters as a united family, and so it's interesting to see that represented in the show, that this is what Blitz's ultimate dream is. And it makes sense for him that family would be the thing for him that he wants the most, because he's felt so worthless and like he doesn't belong his whole life. And just being in a state where everyone validates each other, I think, is something that he desperately wishes for. And so it was interesting to see that was something that really moved him in that moment, that idea. And now that he's closer than ever to achieving it, I think it matters to him even more than it ever has, because he doesn't want to let it slip away from him, which is, I think, why he's putting so much effort now into his relationship with Stolas that he was never willing to put in before, because he never had hope really that this would turn into anything before. He always felt like, oh, well, I'm going to get rejected in the end, or whatever his feelings, I'm going to hurt him in the end, whatever his feelings were. And so he's self-sabotaged his whole life. But now it's like he actually has hope. And so he wants to really, like, put effort into maintaining that. And so, yeah, it really, I think the episode worked really well with all the themes of Christmas. It, like, incorporated that really well into where the show is right now regarding the characters and their relationships. It just very naturally made sense the way they did it. So I don't really have any major problem with this episode. I really liked a lot of the animation too. I thought it was well animated. I don't have any major problems with this episode. I still don't like Octavia, but it's not really a specifically this episode problem. It's more just a thing where I wonder like what we're supposed to get out of that dynamic other than like Octavia's at fault. I just wonder if they could have written it a little bit better, written it in a way that maybe we could understand her a little bit more, that she wasn't quite as dismissive as she is. I don't think they needed to make it quite as dramatic as it was, although I understand for story reasons them wanting to do that. For character reasons, I kind of think it throws Octavia under the bus a bit, and kind of damages her character a little bit, unfortunately. But yeah, overall, really liked this episode. Really great. Very wholesome episode. Very sweet. Had lots of nice little cute moments with Blitz and Stolas. And good songs. I think that's about it. I thought there was maybe one more point I forgot to mention, but I think that's it. So, yeah. I hate Christmas, but I like this episode. See you later.